In today's episode of the Pathmark Presents podcast, I have an interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Michael Canty, and he's hailing over from the folks over at Contractbook. And Contractbook is actually, very, very close to what the name says, but also you can check it out on the website. It says, automate contracts, celebrate deals. That's what it's all about. And today we want to deep dive into, a little bit more in depth what the product entails, but also how Michael is thinking about growth for the company as the head of global revenue operations. So, Michael, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here.
Of course. Yeah. So maybe give us a quick insight. What would you say? What is Contractbook all about in your own words?
Yeah, I think, listen, at the end of the day, what we're about is making contracts a pleasant experience. I think, you talk to anybody in pretty much any department of an organization. It doesn't matter if it's sales, doesn't matter if it's HR, you can go down the list. And when it comes time to dealing with contracts and getting those done, I think most people, give a big sigh. They go, all right, time to get the paperwork done. And I think, what we're here to do is make that a great process, right? It says it right on the website, celebrate deals, right? When we sign a new employee, we should be excited when we're offering that, when we're getting ready to sign a new customer, we should be excited. We should be celebrating. It shouldn't be something that we dread. So I think that's at the highest level, that's what we're here to do. And that's what we're excited to bring to the market and get people celebrating when they're getting these contracts out the door.
That makes a lot of sense. You mentioned already a couple of use cases that you guys are catering to. Maybe tell me a little bit about sort of what's the typical type of company that is leveraging Contractbook. Is there a certain scale that you need? Is there, certain functions that you need? Maybe tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I think, listen, we have companies, everywhere from, your 1 to 10 mom and pop shops to, 10,000 plus organizations using the platform. I think, for us, what we see is sort of the core base of our users are usually companies that are going through a phase of growth. So, they're in that 50 to 250 person range, maybe growing a bit more. They're starting to see a higher volume of contracts. So whether that's hiring, whether that's sales contracts, everybody's favorite NDAs, non-disclosures, people who are starting to see an uplift of those are usually the ones we see coming to us, because that's where things like automation, that's where things like better management and better insight into what's going on in the contracts. That's when it starts to become more important for the business.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, okay. How do people learn about Contractbook? Those folks that you mentioned, how do they hear? How do they get started? Is it, what's the motion, the journey that they're going through?
Yeah. So, where we typically see a lot of people start is where I think most people do start, which is education. The amount of traffic to how do I make contracts less of a headache, right? There's a ton of great content we have around that, around how to manage that process, around how to think about it from a future perspective, right? I think we're creatures of habit, and oftentimes when we look to solve problems, we look to the solutions that we know and that we're familiar with, and we're something new. So I think a lot of it starts with education, and then what we see from there is that for a lot of people, they read it, they see it, they feel it, they get it. And that's when they're reaching out to us to start to engage with the salesperson to take that, because a lot of the times the contracting process can be fairly complex. So what we're here to do is help to understand the customer's process, understand where the challenges are as the sales organization does, and help to prescribe different ways and different solutions that they can implement with us to help alleviate some of those challenges, right? And that's sort of getting them to the point of, celebrating the deal, us sending the contract. And then from there, that's when I won't say the real work, because I don't want to insult our sales friends out there, but a lot of the work of getting set up and actually getting it operationalized happens after the signature. And that's where our implementation team will step in, help to build the solution, get it integrated into the systems that they need, and then have one of our lovely customer success team members help to support them through their growth.
Gotcha. Very cool. So, what are the channels that people are going through in order to get to know you guys? Is it sort of, we mentioned the website there before the conversation, actually, how do they find you guys in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think there's your average, run-of-the-mill type of SaaS channels that you'll find us on, right? You'll often see an ad for us when you go to search contract management. You're going to see we're bidding hard on those top placements. But other places you're going to see us, you're going to find us on like places like LinkedIn where we're sharing content. Kate on our content team is wonderful. She's always in there sharing fresh, new, relevant content, helping to engage with the community out there. You'll find us in community-led organizations as well. So places like Pavilion and Rev Genius, where we're actually out there trying to interact with people who are not just experience contract management issues, but are just have questions about how to better manage their contracts in general. Listen, like we think we have the best solution out there, but that doesn't mean that we have to be, the solution every time. I think what we're always looking to do is be out there in the community and just sharing information, right? So, from there, like you'll find us at events. We have 2 big events we're at this week. We're at SaaStr out in San Francisco. We're at Tech Barbecue in Copenhagen. So you can find us all over. And again, like I think the heart of what we're trying to do from the marketing side and what we as an operations team are trying to support is that community engagement piece. We find that that's where our potential customers get the most value from us, at least prior to buying the platform.
Very cool. Now, let's talk a little bit about your role, right? You're head of global revenue operations. Maybe give us a glimpse. What does that mean? Like, what are sort of the responsibilities? What's important? What types of projects are you working on? How is it defined as a role in Contractbook?
Yeah, I think if I could give the simplest definition of it is my job is to help ensure that our customers have a seamless experience with us and that like our internal customers, so our different revenue teams, that they have a seamless experience internally as they work with those customers. So a lot of what we're doing across the org, so we work with marketing, we work with sales, we work with customer success, we work with partnerships. A lot of what we're doing is helping to understand the strategies that they're looking to implement, aligning those with the business goals and objectives, and then going out there and helping to put those strategies into action. So sometimes that means implementing new systems. Sometimes it means providing them a better mechanism for working within the systems that we have. Like probably the most important output of all of this, which is reporting and analytics. What's actually happening? What's actually working and not working? And how do we make decisions that drive not just a better business result for us, but a better outcome for the customer and a better interaction with the brand?
Makes sense. Now, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about sort of your journey. We talked a bit about Contractbook, what you guys are doing. We talked about the journey of people getting started. I would love to learn a little bit more about yourself. So, when we're talking about revenue operations, sort of where do you find great content to educate yourself? For other people who are stepping into that role, is there like communities out there? Is there certain blogs, podcasts? What do you suggest typically?
Yeah, so the Revenue Engine podcast is probably one of the best ones out there. It's highly highly regarded by revenue operations team members. It's highly regarded by me. I would highly encourage everybody to go out there. I think RevOps we're a few years into the RevOps craze and wave, right? It's sort of for people who are in operations or people who saw how organizations, some of the disjointed ways that organizations were working, I think it's been a concept for a while now. But I think some of the best content out there is really in the communities. It's in the revenue practitioners who are getting together and discussing the problems that they're facing and looking for ways to do that. So again, I mentioned Pavilion and Rev Genius before. I think I'd love to give a shout out to Wizard of Ops as well. That's one of the best communities on the planet when it comes to revenue operations. And I think that's where a lot of the groundswell value and a lot of the groundswell education has come from. But listen, like things are changing. You can go to HubSpot right now and get a RevOps certification. Like that's a real thing you can get now. So I think like those places as well, we see like a lot of great content coming out and around on, and I think it's super fun. It's super exciting to see.
Cool. I got some rapid fire questions to wrap it up for today. Are you ready for those?
Let's go. I'm in.
What's the last book you read or the last podcast you listened to, excluding obviously the one that you just referred to?
That's fair. The last book I read was Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, which I think is like a standard kit kind of book for a lot of sales teams. I don't know if everybody reads it. But it's pretty brilliant. He has an incredible story. He was a former Navy SEAL. He was you know, at war overseas in some of the worst areas, and he translated that leadership of his Navy SEALs unit into some really great business teachings about how you take ownership over your part of the business. I couldn't recommend it enough.
What's one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Customer experience, customer experience, customer experience. Like, no explanation required. It's all about the customer experience.
If there would be no boundaries in tech, what's the one thing that you would fix for your role and revenue operations?
Debugging issues in systems. If I could get back all the admin work that goes into supporting systems once they're created, oh boy, we could have a lot easier of a time.
What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
Last night we're migrating billing systems right now, which is a huge lift on the finance side of the house. And I got to be honest, that's money in the door, right? So that's a big one to sit around and think about.
And for the very last one, if we go back to the days of the University of Dartmouth, right? What's the one advice that you would give yourself for your journey and your career in business?
Yeah, more math classes and more time with Excel. I think, you know, I remember always sitting in math class being like, I'm never going to use statistics ever again. Once I leave here, I'm not going to do it. And now I'm sitting here going like, okay, time to crack open that old stats book and relearn statistics so that we can work it into some Excel sheets and spit out some numbers.
Very cool. That makes a whole lot of sense. Now, Mike, I really appreciate you took the time with us today to be a guest on Pathmark Presents. I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about Contractbook, what's the one thing people should remember? You know, I think just remember that contracts don't need to be like a head scratcher. They don't need to be a point of frustration. They don't need to be something that slows down your processes. They can be something that is easy, streamlined, and brings you joy to do. And if you find that with us, great, but I encourage you to go find it anyway. We should be very happy when we're sending contracts. Awesome. Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathmark Presents. Happy to be here.